Thanks for dropping in to Get Out of Your Way, a confidence overhaul podcast for those souls that desire bigger and bolder lives. I'm your host, Meg, dishing out the truth about moving into your confidence zone. Because sometimes it's really the stuff we hide from that holds us back. So sit back and relax as we dive into this week's confidence conversation. May it help you shift into becoming the badass that you desire. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Get Out of Your Way. So last week's episode, I talked about distractions and how they are not good for us and how detrimental that they can be. And after the episode launched, it really struck me that I've been doing these things a lot. I started to recognize my lack of presence in my family unit. I started to notice my concentration and my focus level being super low. I started to notice a lot of my doubts and my fears popping up around my business and around what I do, and even around this podcast. And I made a vow to myself. I said, you know what? If I'm going to talk about it, then I'm going to do it. So I took 2 days, 2.5 days. So Friday night, Saturday, and full day Sunday. And I did not engage. I did not open up or even peek at any of my social media. So as most of you know, my business and my podcast and my whole life revolves around being seen and visible on Instagram and Facebook. And these are my two main social media platforms that take a lot of my time every day. And a while ago, I had actually limited my time to 2 hours a day for boundary-wise for my business and for my mental health. But I found that I was still actively craving this need to know things. And not even just business-wise, but need to know what people are doing, how people are getting along. You know, it was getting to be too much for me that I was placing all of my energy in wondering about other people instead of actually wondering what was happening in my own house. So I made a vow to myself that I was going to take the weekend off of social media, and I was just going to be present in my home, present with my kids, present with my partner, present with my friends. And let me tell you, Friday night I was okay, because generally with my 2-hour rule, with my 2-hour limit that I have on social media right now, by about 7 p.m., I'm already locked out of my social media. So from 7 on, I'm already used to not being on my phone from those hours. So Friday night was fine. Saturday morning, my morning ritual is I get up, I do my meditation, I have my coffee, and then by on the weekends, usually about 9:00, I pick up my phone and I check my messages. And, my messages generally consist of potential clients, people asking questions, current clients, them, bouncing stuff off of me. And I had told everybody that I was taking the weekend off, so they all knew, and I was prepared for this. And I had a hard time not picking up my phone. So Friday night, I had already locked myself out. I turned my time down to 0 minutes so that I knew as soon as I picked it up and tried to open Facebook or Instagram, because I'm aware of my actions and I'm aware of the things that I do. So in order to prevent myself from actually not listening to my own advice, I did what I needed to do to make sure it didn't happen. So I locked myself out of it. The moment I picked up my phone and I noticed that the lock screen was on, I was like, oh, right. I said I wasn't going on all weekend. So I put my phone down. I will tell you, 4 years ago, I quit smoking. I had smoked for almost 20 years. I'm aging myself here. I was very young when I started. I would attribute the symptoms to leaving social media and my phone usage to Nick Fitz. And I mean, I can say this because I've gone through both now. It was hard as fuck to not pick up my phone and consistently check my social media. You know, curious about the notifications, wondering if somebody liked a post. It was hard. And I think for the better part of the morning, I consistently kept picking up my phone unconsciously too. Like I wasn't even thinking about it. I would just automatically pick up my phone. And it got to the point where I would pick up my phone, recognize that Facebook and Instagram were locked out, and then try another app. It was like my brain and my body were looking for these dopamine hits so badly that they didn't care where they came from. I mean, I went on to LinkedIn. I never go on to LinkedIn because it's not an app that I use. It's not a platform that I use. I have a profile, but like nobody knows me on there. I don't have any connections on there, and it's just there. And I unconsciously opened up these apps, looking, hunting, searching so hard for these dopamine hits. And that was kind of my rock bottom, where I was like, what am I doing? This is insanity. So I put my phone down in the kitchen where it wasn't visible to my unconscious brain or my eyeballs. And I decided that I needed to distract myself with something different. So I exchanged my distractions, which is normal when you're quitting something. You generally will exchange the habit for something different. Provided it's a healthy habit that you're exchanging with, it's not a bad thing. So I put my phone down and I was like, hey, what am I going to do? And so I started deep cleaning my house, like cleaning baseboards and just keeping my hands busy and my brain busy from wanting that consistent pick up the phone, get my dopamine hit, put it down. You know, something needed to be broken in that cycle. So I'll tell you, my house has never been so clean. I mean, it's clean, but it's extra clean now. Things are sorted out, garbage is thrown away, and, you know, it was like a spring cleaning in the winter, which is uncommon, but it feels good. So by the afternoon, I had a friend come over for coffee, and it was amazing to me that while I still had access to text messages and I still was a little bit distracted during our coffee, I felt like I was a little bit more present in our conversation. And, you know, it was refreshing to just have a full conversation where I wasn't sitting there waiting for an opportunity to answer. You know, we were there with each other and talking like deep, meaningful things. I mean, my friend, this friend and I, we have these conversations quite often. It's normal for us to just like zone out and go on a tangent about whatever the topic. She's a beautiful person for that. And I love that I can have these impactful conversations, and she's just able to kick my brain into high gear so that I start thinking about different things. So, it wasn't as difficult to have this conversation with her, but, it was still amazing to me that like, I didn't feel the need to consistently check my phone while we were having the conversations. You know, there were a couple of text messages that had come through in that time, but I mean, she understood. She was doing the same thing, because that's society now. That's what we do. We have multiple conversations at the same time. But it definitely anchored down the necessity for this hiatus from social media. And after that conversation and after that, the friend time that I had, it was easier for me. Something had clicked in me that it was like, okay, I'm doing this for a good reason. It's not like I'm punishing myself. It wasn't that I was doing anything bad. I'm recognizing now that there was a cycle that needed to be broken. And in order to break that cycle, I have to do some hard shit for a couple of days. So whatever the addiction for you is, I mean, if you know deep down that you needed to break the cycle, it's going to be hard for a little while. But that hard doesn't last forever. Eventually it gets easier, and it gets easier and easier and easier until you don't need that addiction anymore. And that cycle is broken. There will be slip ups. no doubt, because when your body craves something in such an intensity, like a dopamine hit or a nicotine hit, you will go to great lengths to achieve that. And sometimes these great lengths aren't very healthy. But I mean, this conversation isn't about the addictions as a whole, because it's such a nuanced conversation. There's so many addictions out there that I can't even speak about, so I won't even touch them. But when it comes to social media, it gets easier, much easier. So by Saturday evening, my addiction was almost curbed. I still had the cravings. I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and, your phone and social media is usually your first go-to for any of that kind of information. But I had the trust in myself that I didn't need to know that this weekend was a free weekend. If anything was going to happen, I would find out on Monday. It's not a big deal. Plus, if anything really, really bad happened, my text messages were still available. So I'm sure that my family and my partner would let me know that I need to do something, whatever would be happening, because I know that they're always watching out for us as well. So Saturday night, it was just my youngest daughter and I at home, and I began to recognize the finer details of the stuff around me. Watching how she interacts with different things. She was laying on the floor playing with her toys. She's 7. She's laying on the floor playing with her toys. And I was just in awe watching how her imagination was working. It was amazing to me that she could just pull these scenarios and these stories out of thin air and enact them out with her horses and her wolf, because she's got a wolf obsession. And it was beautiful. And these are the things that I didn't notice for a really long time, because instead of paying attention to what my kids were doing in front of me, my face was in a phone, scrolling endlessly at useless information that did nothing but stress me out, did nothing but make me overthink, did nothing but make me doubt myself in my business and as a human, my capabilities. And yet we sit here day in and day out and continuously do it over and over and over again. For what reason? We're missing out on everything that's happening in front of us. So I got down on the floor and played with her, which was something that I haven't done in years. It's sad to say. I mean, I have kids. I love my kids, and I do things with them, but I've never really fully been there doing them. And this weekend I did, and it was very refreshing. And after she went to bed, this was another thing that I noticed. I decided to watch a TV show. And I watched it in completion and watched the entire thing. Like, I not just watched it and been on my phone, because that's generally what happens, is we put on a TV show and it's just background noise. But this show I watched with focus. I saw the things that were happening in the background of the TV show, the little nuanced things that actually carry the story further than just listening to the dialogue. And it was quite amazing to me that, like, there's so much more to a TV show or a story that we don't recognize because we're not paying full attention. And it would be the same for anything. It could be the same for watching your kids play. It could be the same for having a conversation with somebody. There are things in those conversations and those things happening around you that you're not recognizing, you're not visibly seeing or feeling, because we're not fully there. Most of us is pulled away in wondering what's going on in our business, wondering what's going on social media, wondering what's going on, if there's a message coming in, wondering what's going on outside of our spectrum instead of what's going on in front of us. So there was a lot of things that I recognized only on Saturday. This was one day A full 24 hours after having social media detox. 24 hours is all it took. Could you imagine doing this for a week? The things that you would recognize and accomplish and do in your life from not being distracted every moment of the day from your phone. It's so powerful, the things that we could do. But instead, we procrastinate and we can sit and just lose ourselves in these apps for hours and hours. I mean, you hear people talking about it. Don't get me on TikTok because as soon as I open that app, I'm gone for 2 hours. And it's true. That's how they're designed. They're designed to keep you docile and not thinking of what's going on in front of you. Which is a whole, this could go into a whole other tangent. But by Sunday, I had felt amazing. I slept much better the night before. So I got up in the morning and my daughter and I made breakfast and we were just kind of relaxing. It was a chill day. She wanted to go outside and play, so I allowed her to do that. She's got a little igloo out there. And I watched her play and use that imagination outside. And then I felt a wave of emotion. And I mean, I'm a woman, so waves of emotion are natural. They come all the time. And but this time, instead of going, oh, I'm just silly, it's hormones, whatever, I felt it. I felt it into completion. And I mean, I'm a very spiritual person and I advocate for mental health, and feeling your emotions fully is something that I talk about quite often, to be honest, because trapped emotion can cause a whole lot of other damage than anything else. So, I mean, I am an advocate for making sure that when I do have emotion, I feel it fully. But there are a lot of times where I'm like, oh, it's not the right time. I'll complete this later. You know, I'll set aside time to make sure that I go through this. But instead of stopping its tracks when it first happened to do it later, I jumped right in the moment. And it was so empowering and freeing for me to just allow it to happen. And it actually happened a lot quicker than any of my other emotional outbursts have been, because I didn't have that pause in there. It wasn't like I had to pull it back out and go, okay, I had an emotion earlier. This is what I was thinking about. Let's bring it up now. It was happening. It happened. And I moved through it. And it was nothing severe. It was just, you know, an overwhelming joy that I had. And I honestly think it popped up because of the things that I was recognizing, the things that I was witnessing, and just having a little bit of guilt for the times that I didn't get to see what was happening in front of me, especially with my daughter, because I was distracted. And it's okay to feel that guilt, but we need to take that recognition of guilt and transform it into something different. We need to understand that the system is designed this way. They want the distraction. They want us to be not noticing things around us, because when we recognize and we notice, we're able to feel more. We can transcend ourselves a little bit higher. And I don't want to get too deep into this because I know that a lot of my listeners aren't as deep into this emotions and how we can transcend our higher to our higher being. We're not quite there yet. And I will talk about it more in the coming episodes, about how to do this kind of stuff. But my clients out there, they know what I'm talking about when it comes to moving through emotions and becoming our higher beings. I'm sure you've heard it and seen it in the social media lands, because a lot of people are talking about it now, and which is beautiful. But the point of this is I wanted to share with you my journey, my personal journey of talking about something, doing it myself, and having the understanding now, having the full understanding of what I was rambling on about last week. Because yes, I understand and I have like thought patterns around the things that I talk about, but sometimes in order to fully understand something, you need to experience it as well. And that's what I did. I experienced it fully this weekend. How to both sides of it. So like having the distracted side and having the undistracted side. And it has definitely opened my eyes to being less distracted. So from here on out, I have a boundary set. I am available for social media and my clients from 8 to 5 every day. And that's it. I'm not going to be on social media in the evenings. There's no point. There's no need for me. If we're friends and you know, because a lot of people talk on social media. If we're friends, text me because I'm not going to be on there anymore. This is a boundary that I am very passionate about now. I have 2 kids that are growing exponentially way too quick. And I don't want to miss that. I don't want to miss every single stage that they go through. I don't want to miss any fights that we have. I don't want to miss and misunderstand them. I want to be present for them. I want to be present for my partner. I want to be present for my family. And in order to do that, I cannot be married to my phone anymore. If you want to experience true, undistracted living, take 1 weekend away from your phone. Take 1 weekend to be completely present with everything around you. 1 weekend, and you'll see. I'm not going to say it's an easy weekend. For some, it might be incredibly difficult. I know it was for me, but I knew that the purpose for me to do it was much greater than just doing it. And when you have a purpose or a meaning or a reason to do something hard, that hard action gets a little bit easier. So find a reason and become present. That's it. Until next week, I will talk to you later. Love you all.
Thanks for joining me today. For more truth and badassery, head on over to megnicole.coach on Instagram. If this podcast happened to rock your world and you think it might rock someone else's as well, be sure to share it. Perhaps we can all be a part of changing someone's view on life. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Catch y'all next week.